And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020, but enough of me. I'm here for you on today's episode of the FB Show. It is our Week 10 preview live stream breaking down every single Week 10 matchup, all through the lens of fantasy football, in order to put your team in the position to make the playoffs, win that goddamn fantasy championship, and hopefully I can repeat again this season. But before we get started, a few quick things from you. First off, smash that subscribe button, power running back style, so you never miss a video from me. Try to do these live streams once or twice a week, previewing, then recapping the games. The content schedule, all things considered, has been a bit up and down, a little bit wavy. But if you want to find some consistent content from me, of course, follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture, specifically Twitter. That's where I do tweet out a lot of my thoughts, takes, and opinions about all things fantasy football, and I answer a lot of your start-sit questions, trade offers, waiver wire pickups, and anything else fantasy football related over there. My DMs on every platform are open for conversation. I think that's kind of it. Honestly, I do not have little game graphics prepared for this week. Time got away from me, but I do got I got 3 pages of notes here that we can get to for every game. Of course, the teams on byes are going to be the New York Jets, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Atlanta Falcons. And there's actually a few things here that I want to talk about with the byes. And looking at these teams, yes, the Jets are not good, and yes, the Cowboys are not good. But every single team on a bye this week has major fantasy implications. We are now in crunch time, and this is when we need to start winning as many matchups as possible in order to secure our playoff berth. And you look at the Jets, yes, they don't have a whole lot of fantasy relevant options, if any at all, but the Jets defense is terrible. So they've always been a great matchup if your team is playing the Jets. So you lose points that way. For the Chiefs, we lose all of their offensive firepower, whether it be a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or if you were a person spinning the wheel between Demarcus Robinson and Mecole Hardman every week, you lose your options there for the week. For the Dallas Cowboys, that defense has been terrible. And while the wide receivers and Zeke haven't been playing well, not having a defense like that where your quarterback can drop a 30 bomb on them, that matters. And then on the other side with Falcons, the Falcons are the combination between the two, where we lose the offensive weapons of a Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley, and Hayden Hurst, and we also lose a very bad defense as well. So I'm going to argue right now that the Week 10 byes are the most detrimental for fantasy this season, because yes, while the offensive weapons may lack on some teams, all 4 teams either have a great offense or a terrible defense, and that just leaves a lot of points left out of Week 10, all things considered. So I'm a bit bummed out about the bye week this week. Let's go into the matchups now. Looking at this, I believe we have one, because I didn't cover the Thursday night game. I felt like it was one of those games pretty cut and dry. You knew what you needed to do. Admittedly, maybe it's something I should be better at. Before we even go to the game, let's talk about this for a second. Last week and kind of the last 2 weeks, all things considered, I'm going to call it my Jerick McKinnon week. And if you aren't familiar with what happened with Jerick McKinnon about a week ago, Kyle Shanahan did not play him. It was actually 2 weeks ago. Kyle Shanahan did not play Jerick McKinnon in Week 8 at all. And the reason why he didn't was because he said that Jerick McKinnon had, quote, tired legs. And if you aren't familiar with McKinnon's injury history, basically has been out of football for the past 2.5 years, just battling injuries and setbacks. And so this being his first real game action in the 2020 season in about 3 years or so, his legs, his body naturally is going to be sore and tired from that. And so Shanahan decided to give McKinnon Week 8 off, essentially, and he didn't tell any of us. And I feel like I'm very much in that same spot, right? This is my rookie season doing fantasy football content here, and I have ways and I have things that I want to do and content that I want to make. If you guys recall, weeks 1, 2, and 3, I came out hot out the gate. I was doing anywhere between 26 and 32 videos every single week. And then I kind of shifted a few things around, kind of wanted to play around with some different content styles. Liked what I was doing with the live streams, felt like I could be doing more, so there was that internal battle as well. And then it was week 8 or week 9, I think it was last week, that I really just kind of let my foot off the gas, and I was just kind of, I just needed that week off, right? There's a really fun saying among sports when it's your rookie season. There's no way to prepare for the length of the season, right? It's a mental fatigue, it's a physical fatigue, and that really was kind of where I was at this past week. But I understand right now through the rest of the year, it's playoff time, it's championship time, it's time to contend and compete and win. So this stretch, I'm back, I'm ready to go, and we're going to have a solid run here for the rest of the season. I can guarantee you that, because at the end of the day, it is about winning this thing right behind me. So let's dive in to Week 10. We're going to kick off talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. First off, big thing here from this game is Miles Sanders is back from his knee injury that sidelined him multiple weeks. Sanders has been battling injuries pretty much all year. It started off with the hamstring, and then it moved over to the knee. And he's back. And this is great for fantasy because the Eagles' schedule coming up is really great. I believe they have the Giants and the Jets back-to-back weeks, if I'm not mistaken. But what's going to end up happening here is the Eagles, just in general, are getting their full arsenal back. Jalen Reagor's back from that thumb injury. Alshon Jeffrey looks like he's going to be good to go. Full participant in practice this week. He was battling that offseason foot surgery, and then he was also just recently battling a calf injury that was limiting him from coming back. So we're going to get Miles Sanders back. We're going to get Alshon Jeffrey back. Jalen Reagor's back. Dallas Goedert's back. And we have a full cast of weapons here in Philadelphia between Sanders, Goedert, Reagor, Fulgham, and Jeffrey. Carson Wentz could be cooking here down the stretch. He's a guy that I'm really keeping my eye on. If he is on your waiver wire, you have to scoop him up now, just on the off chance that, or not even on the off chance, but in the event rather, that Wentz goes crazy, you need to have him on your team right now. The Giants' defense is better than a lot of us all expected them to be, but Wentz and company should be able to get this done. I'm playing Miles Sanders if he's back and healthy. I'm playing Dallas Goedert, honestly, like, who are you sitting here? The only point of contention that I need to bring up is James Bradberry, cornerback for the Giants, has been playing spectacularly well this season. I expect him to shadow Travis Fulgham. So if you are starting Fulgham, definitely kind of limit your expectations for that. Bradberry's been locking guys down all season long. And that's just something that I feel like I need to throw out there just kind of as a blip for if Fulgham does not produce to the level that we have all expected him to. That's likely the reason why. Sterling Shepard is questionable for this game with a hip and toe injury. I expect him to play. I believe he's been a limited participant in practice all week. And Sterling Shepard has been great since returning from injury in his 3 games since coming back. He's put up 14 points, 11, and 9. So those are 3 really solid games for you in half-point formats. 9 not so much, but definitely the 14 and the 11. The targets are there, the yardage is there, and he has been able to get his way into the end zone as well. Speaking of getting into the end zone and targets more specifically, Evan Ingram is coming back to life. He's seen 10-plus targets in back-to-back games, which is just spectacular, right? This is the Evan Ingram that we all expected him to be. And while this Eagles defense is fairly solid, I think Evan Ingram is a decent start for you this week, especially with the landscape of tight ends being no Dalton Schultz, being no Hayden Hurst, no Travis Kelce, obviously. So there is definitely room here for Evan Ingram to come through for you at the tight end position. But other than that, actually, we have an injury note for this game as well. This was a late addition to the injury report. Devonta Freeman has been battling an ankle injury for the past 2 weeks or so. And it was just announced today that he has been placed on IR. So he's going to miss a minimum of 3 weeks. And in that means that Wayne Goldman is likely going to be the guy. I keep yelling. I apologize for that. Wayne Goldman is likely going to be the guy. Simply put, it's been Goldman in the goal line more than Dion Lewis. I know Lewis kind of got a cheap little goal line touchdown just off a little flat route. But I do like Goldman. He's been finding ways to get into the end zone, and with no Devonta Freeman, that means the rush attempts have to go to Goldman in that event. Excuse me. All right. Other than that, I think that's kind of it. I think maybe let's just talk some free agency here with Wayne Goldman. If he's available, you have to pick him up just because if injuries arise and we still have some bye weeks that we have to get through, Wayne Goldman is the guy who you could spot start as a flex or a running back 2 option, you could definitely do worse. Yes, it's not a sexy name by any means, but Wayne Gallman has a history of just kind of getting it done or doing the bare minimum to keep your team afloat. And I think he is an intriguing option going forward for the next handful of weeks, just knowing that he is going to get the opportunity on an offense that is not great, not really good, but they're fine, and they've been able to put some level of points up on the board this season. Moving over to our next matchup, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Green Bay Packers. It is Jake Luton's season. Luton played really well last week, or as well as he could, being a 6th-round draft pick. Threw the ball well, targeted DJ Chark like hell, and he was also able to get in for a rushing score as well. I thought we were all pretty impressed with what Jake Luton did last week versus the Texans. But this is the Green Bay Packers, and this is a much better defense. James Robinson never leaves your lineup. This is a great matchup versus the Packers. We know one thing about them, and that is they are very susceptible to the run. I think James Robinson can absolutely cook in this game. Maybe they try and take the ball out of the hands of Luton just a little bit more, and they really lean on James Robinson just because the matchup that he has is so spectacular. DJ Chark actually is a great opportunity here as well. This Packers defense is better than the Texans, but the big thing missing for them this week is Jaire Alexander. Yes, Jaire Alexander is inactive for this game. He's been an incredible cornerback this season. I believe he ranks in the top 5 in PFF, if I'm not mistaken. So Chark is a great opportunity. We really like the connection that we saw last week between Chark and Luton. Luton trusted him, threw him the ball a ton. And that is something that a young quarterback has to do, right? Trust the talent that you have around you, and DJ Chark is one of the best young wide receivers in the league. And in the event, most likely that the Packers take a monster lead, Jacksonville's playing from behind, and Chark should have value in garbage time as well. It's been the Chark argument all season long for why you need to play him in your lineups. But that being said, for Green Bay, you know the drill, right? We're starting Aaron Rodgers, we're starting Aaron Jones, Davante Adams, and we're starting Robert Tonyan. It's also worth noting that Allen Lazard is very close to returning. He's questionable for this game coming off of that core muscle surgery. He has not been activated off the IR yet, but if not this week, definitely next week. He's been practicing in some capacity, and so with that being said, look for Lazard to make a return to the lineup. I'm going to anticipate it more so next week than this week, because I think it's understood that the Packers are more than likely going to win this game pretty handily, so there's no real reason to rush Lazard back. Our next game is going to be the Washington football team taking on the Detroit Lions. Antonio Gibson, I want to start here with Washington. Antonio Gibson has an incredible schedule coming up. If I'm not mistaken, and yes, it's currently slipping through my head, so let me just pull it up. But Antonio Gibson, I know for 2 out of the 3 weeks, takes on the Lions, takes on the Giants, and the Cowboys, I think it is. Let me vet that just to make sure. That is exactly what it is. He had the Cowboys last week, played really well. He had the Cowboys 2 weeks ago, played really well before the bye week. He had a stat line of 20 attempts, 128 rushing yards, and a score, 18.8 fantasy points for you in half-point formats. Takes on the Lions this week, and the Giants next week. So the schedule for him is really, really nice. So I'm throwing Antonio Gibson into my lineup. You may have heard this stat floated around. I saw it from a few people. I saw it on Twitter first, and the footballers brought it up later on in their show. Antonio Gibson only has 1 touch on 3rd down, which is blatantly insane considering the fact that he played wide receiver in college, right? We know the pass catching ability that he has, but for whatever reason, they've only been using Antonio Gibson in that 1st and 2nd down role, and we've seen the snap counts. I bitch about it after every single week, how J.D. McKissic is getting more involved, and Antonio Gibson needs more work. J.D. McKissic, technically has a really good matchup here against the Lions as well. This can't just be a narrative where we're hyping up Antonio Gibson all week and not talking about J.D. McKissic. McKissic being the pass-catching back definitely bumps up his value in PPR formats. And just the fact that Alex Smith just checks down to running backs all the time as well. That's something that can't be overstated. It's just kind of what Alex Smith does. It's what he's had the tendency to do for a long time. We saw that with Jamal Charles, and we saw it with Kareem Hunt, right? So there is a track record of Alex Smith checking down to the running back position, and J.D. McKissic obviously is the beneficiary of that. I'm fine playing McKissic in your lineup this week. Terry McLaurin is a great start this week. Yes, we don't know the full ceiling or the full potential of Alex Smith, but we could probably assume that Alex Smith is a better or equal quarterback, right, to Kyle Allen or Dwayne Haskins, right? It's very hard to be worse than those two, and we know what Terry McLaurin has done with bad quarterback play, and there's no need to shy away from him in this matchup versus Lions. McLaurin's obviously in your lineup every single week. Kenny Golladay and T.J. Hawkinson both did not practice on Thursday. I don't think that Kenny Golladay practiced on Friday. Let me vet that to make sure. One of the things that I make these notes on Thursday, and then I work Friday, and then I come home from work and I record these things. So I try and run through all of the injuries that I possibly can before I go live, but there are some things that slide through the cracks. This definitely being one of them with Kenny Golladay. I don't expect him to play even if he did practice in some capacity. Yeah, so Kenny Golladay was ruled out, and I believe T.J. Hawkinson was cleared. Let me just make sure of that. So do not play Kenny Golladay. You will get 0 fantasy points here. Hawkinson is questionable, and let's see. He was limited. Hawkinson was limited in practice on Friday. I expect him to play. I know he's been battling some toe injuries in the past, and he's usually played through those. The Lions' backfield. I want to talk about this because I think this is actually really important. The Lions' backfield is still in hell, but there are things that really make me happy, should I say, about the Lions' backfield. Yes, Adrian Peterson is still involved, and yes, so is Kerryon Johnson. But who I really want to talk about right now is Deandre Swift. I have some numbers here that I would like to pull up. Deandre Swift right now for the season is running back 20. Now, does that say more things about Deandre Swift, the Lions' backfield, or the state of the running back position, right? I don't know. We're gonna have to parse through that just a little bit. Over the course of the past 3 weeks, since the bye week, he has put up 25.8 points, 12.8, 3.8, and 10.2. So 3 out of the last 4 weeks, and if you even want to go back to week 4 before the bye week, it's been 4 out of 5 weeks where Deandre Swift has had double-digit fantasy performances. That's not the big thing for me, even though obviously for fantasy football purposes, that is massive. I want to talk about the snap counts, because the snap counts of those weeks are 37, 38, 46, 61, and 40. So outside of the one game where he had a 61% snap count, and funnily enough, that's the game where he scored the least amount of fantasy points, he still is not really getting on the field in the capacity that we would like. Adrian Peterson is still seeing the field 35% of the snaps. We know Kerryon Johnson is seeing his little dig into the work as well in anywhere between that 25 and 30% range. But the numbers that I want to highlight. Deandre Swift, now I'm getting my running back confused. Over the course of the past 4 weeks since the bye, Deandre Swift's total touches have been 17, 13, 9, and 16. So basically what we're seeing is even in limited work that he's getting, he's still seeing a ton of opportunity. That's the thing that's making me becoming more and more comfortable playing Swift every single week. Because yes, we can bitch about the snap counts, and snap counts are certainly one thing here. But when he's on the field, he is the offense. He is getting the ball at a rate that I'm curious to know what would happen if he were to play 60% of snaps, right? If he were to play consistently 65% of snaps, I'm going to read you what his numbers would be. Just in terms of sheer carry count, okay? We're not even going to factor in the receiving work here. On 65% of snaps, he would be 20 rush attempts. It would be 20 rush attempts, 16 rush attempts. There was that 60%. Let's see here. I'm sorry. because the 60% is really throwing me off. So we'll exclude the Colts game. We'll exclude the Colts game for this argument. So it would be 20, 16, and 17 rush attempts per game, and that's the volume that we're looking for when it comes to DeAndre Swift. I bought DeAndre Swift this week in Dynasty, and I actually bought him after I had all of that information. It was something that I never really fully factored until I think I saw a Twitter thread about it from someone who I follow someone who I follow online. So that actually made me really happy after the fact that I acquired Swift. Like, oh yeah, we're on to something here. So this backfield is still hell just because it's a three-headed monster and all three guys get some level of work. But DeAndre Swift gets more work that... God, I keep going. DeAndre Swift gets more work than you actually think he does. And that is really nice for him going forward and going to be really great for fantasy as well. So if you have DeAndre Swift and you're trying to figure out if you should hold him, if you should cut him, if you should trade him at the deadline, hold him. Hold him. Hold him. Please just do it. Other than that, final thought for this game. I don't love the Lions pass catchers in this game. The Washington defense is very good, and with no Kenny Golladay, you're looking at Marvin Jones being the one against a good defense and a good secondary. Not really interested in that. TJ Hawkinson is currently the tight end 3 or 4, depending on your scoring format this year. So you have to keep playing him in your lineup. He's been great. If he hasn't gotten in the end zone, he's gotten you 60 or 70 yards, and that's one thing that we'd love to see from the tight end position, not being dependent upon touchdowns, but being able to get the yardage as well. Our next game is going to be the Houston Texans versus the Cleveland Browns. This game screams fantasy points here. David Johnson is out, unfortunately, with a concussion, and Nick Chubb is back off the IR from that knee injury from the MCL, I believe it was, and he is going to be back and active for this game against a very bad Houston Texans run defense, and just a very bad Houston Texans defense overall. So with that being said, the Browns defense, their front line's been good. Excuse me. Long week, people. It's been a long week. The Houston Texans defense, the run defense specifically, has not been good. Their defense overall has not been good. The Browns' front line is good. They have some pieces on the secondary, but it's still not great for them either, right? So there is a ton of fantasy points to be had in this game. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, Brandon Cooks, and Will Fuller are all in your starting lineup this week. Duke Johnson revenge game, right? Duke Johnson is a great NFL running back, and I expect him to go off against his former team. So he should be in your lineup. And then on the other side, you're starting Nick Chubb. He's back and healthy. You're going to keep Kareem Hunt in your lineup. Austin Hooper's back from his appendectomy. You should play him. He's been seeing incredible targets before he suffered the injury. And Jarvis Landry should be up as well against a bad Texans defense without Odell Beckham. And all of this makes Baker Mayfield a very interesting streaming option. I think you can do a lot worse than Baker in this matchup. Unfortunately, with the return of Nick Chubb, they are going to really try and get back to that identity of running the football and pounding it down the Texans' throat. So Baker's ceiling may be capped a bit by that, but all things considered, this Texans defense, like I said, is bad. We just saw Jake Luton torch them for 23 fantasy points, so Baker Mayfield should easily be able to surpass that 20-point mark here versus the Houston Texans. This is a game for me that's pretty cut and dry. I don't need to do a whole lot of explaining for it at the end of the day. Just start your players from your Browns and from the Texans. Our next game is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Carolina Panthers. And guys, the Buccaneers might murder the Panthers after what happened on Sunday night, where they got ripped apart by the New Orleans Saints. I am very fearful for my Panthers. Again, though, start your running back against Carolina. It's been the method all season long. It works, and it works well. I'm cool starting Ronald Jones. I'm cool starting Leonard Fournette. They might both get into the end zone. I think that happened in their first matchup with these teams. So I'm really excited for this matchup between the running backs and the Panthers defense, because it's been abysmal all season long. If you've hammered this strategy in DFS, I'm sure it's done wonders for you this year. You're starting Tom Brady. Obviously, yes, there was last week, but we're going to flush that. Just a fluke week for me. It's just... Is there anybody in the world besides Patrick Mahomes, well, I was going to say besides Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson. But, like, I feel like if you have Tom Brady and you're starting him, you're just so cool, calm, collected when you start him in your lineup for the rest of the season. Just because outside of last week, and yes, that was a major letdown, how often is it where you're going to be worried that you're starting Tom Brady? Whew. Excuse me. How often is it that you're going to be worried starting Tom Brady when you have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Ronald Jones, and Fournette out of the backfield? How can you go wrong, right? The only issue is I think Brady's going to enter this category to where they can get up on teams so early he might not play the fourth. And when you're in the fantasy playoffs and things like that, like, I don't know how much I love that. Like, I've been there. I remember I was the Lamar Jackson truther last season, and I had to endure that. I had to endure that in multiple weeks last season, and not having him in week 17 because I do play in a week 17 championship where you just don't have your stud quarterback for a literal fourth of the game. And I don't know what that looks like for the fantasy playoffs. Like that is something where you have to hope and pray that Brady was able to throw for 275 and 3 before the fourth quarter. Because just leaving opportunity like that out on the field, that's got to be some level of thought in the back of your head if you own Tom Brady. But back to this matchup in particular, Tom Brady is up and active in your lineup this week versus Carolina. And let's talk about the Buccaneers wide receivers for just a moment. I was thinking about this in a few ways, okay? And what I ultimately landed on is Antonio Brown is the talented one. Chris Godwin is the consistent one. Evans is the red zone threat. And Gronk is also the red zone threat, right? It's Gronk kind of like the big play guy, all things considered, right? What I mean by this is Antonio Brown has the ability, in my opinion, and they all have this ability, so I don't want to just single out one or the other, but just follow me for a second. Antonio Brown can get it done in any part of the field, right? He is uber talented, and we know the connection he has with Tom Brady over the course of the past 18 months or so. Chris Godwin's going to be the guy that gets it done in between the 20s. So from 20 to 20, this is all Chris Godwin territory. You're going to see a lot of receptions, a lot of yardage, and that's where he's really going to make his money for you for the rest of the season. Evans all year long has been touchdown or bust, so we're going to continue to give him the red zone role there. And then Gronk is just going to be that tight end that can find his way into the touchdown or just catch a 40-yard pass, and that's going to be his production for the game, right? You'll be fine starting Gronk the rest of the way. But I do think it's very interesting how each one of them has their own specific roles, and all of them are very, very different for fantasy football, right? Having that Chris Godwin, the consistent one, very similar to that Jamison Crowder, like an upgraded Jamison Crowder. Evans being the red zone threat that he always has been. Antonio Brown just being that consistent wide receiver that can do things in a variety of different ways. And then Gronk just being Rob Gronkowski, right? So I think that's just a very interesting way to break down what the Buccaneers wide receivers are going to be for the rest of the season. Let's see. Going over to the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey is out after dealing with that shoulder injury that he suffered against the game last week versus Kansas City. Fire up Mike Davis. Just do it. He's been great all season long. Definitely check your waiver wire to make sure that he wasn't dropped, because if he is available, you're looking at a guy that's going to get 15-plus fantasy points in half-point formats pretty easily in this matchup if this game goes the way I expect it to. Curtis Samuel has been on FIRE. He has been a man on a mission, a man on fire, and it makes me so happy as the Curtis Samuel truther along with Matt Harmon in the fantasy football space. The past 3 weeks, 14.3 points, 19.4, and 22.3. He's been getting multiple carries a game, rushing touchdowns, and some increased targets as well. Last week, he had 9 targets, caught all 9 passes actually as well for 105 yards and found his way into the end zone. So he has been getting it done, but it has been touchdown dependent. And the way that this Carolina Panthers offense moves, which I think is actually really funny, is these wide receiver cores kind of mirror each other in a very what's like I don't if you look at like I have an idea. I know how we're gonna pull this off. I have two pens here, and I feel like if it's I don't know if it's my monitor or just the way that my color grading is currently. These pens are very, very close to being the exact same color, but they're not. But if you look at them far away, maybe they're the same color, but when you hold them up close, they're different colors. So let's break down what I mean here. With the Panthers wide receivers, I think that what we've seen so far, Robbie Anderson is most likely going to be Antonio Brown. And I don't mean that literally. I mean that just in terms of he's going to do things all over the field, right? He'll be the guy that's targeted in the red zone, and he's also going to be a guy that's targeted down the field as well. So he kind of fits that Antonio Brown role. Chris Godwin and DJ Moore, as far as I'm concerned right now, are identical players. They are just guys who are going to get it done in between the 20s, and they're just not guys who are going to catch a whole lot of touchdown passes this season, and that leaves Evans and Curtis Samuel to be the red zone threats. Curtis Samuel has been getting goal line rush attempts and is also being featured in the red zone as well, and that's very similar to Mike Evans, minus the rush attempts, but just being hyper-targeted in the red zone. So I do think that these wide receiver cores kind of mirror each other in a very odd way, even though the play styles for them are both very different. Before I move on to this next game, let's talk to the chat just a little bit. Chubu, hello. Jukebox, hello. Let's answer some questions. Ram Stack, yep, sure. I don't know what this is in context to. I haven't talked about that game yet. But yeah, fire up your Los Angeles Rams. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And then Jukebox says, pick two to start. James Conner, Fournette, Chubb, or Edmonds. I'm starting James Conner, and I am starting Nick Chubb in those games. The Houston Texans defense, I just got done talking about them. They are not good, and they are abysmal on the ground. And James Conner last week, as far as I'm concerned, just had a fluke week. He'll be back to normal this week. We'll talk about them in just a moment. Our next game is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Miami Dolphins, a game featuring two young rookie stud quarterbacks from the things that we've seen so far. Have I ever mentioned how much I love Justin Herbert? Right? I think I've talked about this a few times. Going into the draft, I was not high on Justin Herbert. Coming out of the draft, I was high on Justin Herbert. I didn't have him ranked highly in like my dynasty ranking just because I did prefer guys like Tua and Joe Burrow much more. But when you watched Justin Herbert's tape at Oregon, the talent was always there, the arm was always there, the big play was always there. The fact of the matter was he just didn't progress and develop in the ways that we would have liked to see him do, especially being at Oregon for so long. He was a senior, if I'm not mistaken. So because of that, like it just left a lot of sour tastes in a lot of our mouths regarding Justin Herbert because the development that we expected was not there. But boy, oh boy, has the development been there for Herbert just in his few short starts in the NFL. He's been playing really great, and you are starting him in this matchup versus the Dolphins. I'm currently staying away from these running backs. Justin Jackson looks like he's going to be out. Josh Kelly has not been good. Kalen Ballage, for whatever reason, hello, revenge game. First off, revenge game narrative. Secondly, am I really going to trust Kalen Ballage to try and win me a fantasy week in week 10 when I need a win versus the playoffs? Probably not. And then also Pope, coming back from that concussion. Don't know what that's going to look like. I'm just trying to stay away from this backfield as far as I'm concerned. But I'm going to go all in on the pass catchers for this game. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry all need to be in your lineup. Tua last week was really impressive versus the Cardinals, I thought. And wait, why did that say? Interesting. I know what that's about. So Tua was really impressive last week in his start versus the Cardinals, but I don't think I'm comfortable starting him in this matchup. It's going to be fun, don't get me wrong, but it's still too early, I think, to throw Tua in your starting lineup in a single quarterback league. Obviously, if it's 2 QB league, that's a totally different story, but in single quarterback league, I'm not interested in starting Tua in this game. Woo! It is getting late. Your boy needs a nap real bad. I'm also not really interested in starting any of the Miami Dolphins running backs. I know the running back position has been tough for a lot of people, but I feel like even right now, you can do a lot better than the starting running backs for the Dolphins. Like, go pick up Wayne Goldman instead because you know he's going to be the one that gets to work. What makes you so comfortable in starting a Jordan Howard or Ahmed? And just Matt Breida, like if Breida's up and healthy, like do it. Like that makes a lot of sense because Breida more so fills that Myles Gaskin role. But as far as other running backs in this team, not really interested in starting any of them. And then I'm also fine starting Devonte Parker in this game. Devonta Parker's touchdowns from Tua. I believe he was 6 for 63 last week versus Arizona, so that's a fine game there as well. And with no Preston Williams being on IR and Mike Gesicki being a bit inconsistent this year, all things considered, Devonta Parker should be peppered in targets for the next handful of weeks and really develop some chemistry with Tua. Let's see here. All right, to sneeze. All right. Another game that we're going to talk about right now is going. Actually, let's get some water first. Another game that we're going to talk about is going to be the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is what we've been saying all season long. Similarly to the Panthers, start your running backs versus the Raiders. It's been the method of the season. You start your running backs against the Raiders, you start your running backs against the Panthers, and you start your running back against the Packers as well. This is just what we do all season long. So with that being said, Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon should both be in your lineups this week. I love both. Please, just do it. It just makes all the sense in the world. It's been a theory that's worked all season long throughout the course of the first 9 weeks or so. Jerry Judy, welcome to the NFL. He finally did something positive last week. It's been a real struggle to get Jerry Judy going and have any sort of real confidence playing him in your fantasy lineup, especially with the loss of Courtland Sutton. We all kind of nominated Jerry Judy to have this breakout rookie season. And ironically enough, he's been one of the last guys to do it, right? Even though he had a prime opportunity to do so. So Jerry Judy got in the end zone last week. I believe had over 100 receiving yards as well. So I like him in this matchup versus the Raiders. The thing I've been saying about their defense all season long is they're a defense of athletes and not necessarily football players, right? So they rely more on athleticism than football IQ, and that should mean that Jerry Judy has a path to be productive this season. Albert Ogbonam, their rookie tight end who's been playing really well recently, is out for the season after suffering a torn ACL. This is for the Broncos. And that actually gives a bump up to Noah Fant because one of the things that we've seen between them is Fant gets his work cut into and Albert O gets his work cut into because of the others. It's the exact same reasons why I hated Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. It's the reason why I hated Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett because it's just the tight end position is so thin as is, and when you have situations like this to where you just have two guys eating away at each other, it then just brings down the ceiling for both of them. So because of that, it actually gives a bump up to Fant for the rest of the year. For Las Vegas, actually I want one final note on Denver real quick. Drew Lock could have a really good game here. Could be a really nice stat line for him, all things considered. If Jerry Judy continues to emerge and Tim Patrick is back and healthy, Noah Fant can stay on the field, and with Gordon and Lindsay, the Broncos have a really good chance to actually win this game, and I like the potential of them to do so and upset the Raiders in this matchup. For Vegas, though, Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller are always in your starting lineups, and there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype around Nelson Aguilar. I get why. He's been scoring touchdowns. The yardage has been decently high, right? But the issue is the same thing that I've had with Chase Claypool, and it's just the targets still aren't there. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to start a guy this late in the year if you are relying upon touchdowns. Let me just pull up let me just pull up the specific target numbers just to make sure I can read them off to you. So, in these games, in 4 out of the past 5 weeks, Nelson Agholor has put up double-digit fantasy points. His targets in those weeks are the following: 4, 2, 9, 2, 3. And the reason why he has been relevant: touchdown, 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 touchdown. Receiving yards are as totaled: 44, 67, 107, 55. If Nelson Agholor does not get in the end zone, Nelson Agholor is not reliable for your fantasy team. And when you have an offense like this, like Vegas, that operates with Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow, Bryan Edwards is back, it looks like, from his foot injury, and Nelson Agholor, can you ever predict a Nelson Agholor touchdown? I think no. I think you could do much better than Nelson Agholor in your lineup this week. All right, let's shift gears. Let's wake myself up here. And we're going to wake myself up by doing one of the following. We're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills taking on the Arizona Cardinals in what I'm calling the Let's Get Naked for this game, because this game is going to be so much fucking fun. Zach Moss or Devin Singletary? Let's start there. Who do you start? The answer is Zach Moss, and it's as simple as he gets the goal line work. And just having that additional bonus, the ability to get +6 on the board for your team, is all the reason to start Zach Moss over Devin Singletary. Hopefully you don't have both, but just I liked Devin Singletary last year, but we know that with the loss of Frank Gore, he had a very small window to take over this job in full, but he's not built as a guy who can do such a thing. And so when Zach Moss was drafted, like, these are the games why Zach Moss was drafted. So the Bills can stay competitive, punch the ball into the end zone on first and short at the 2-yard line or things like that, move the chains a little bit. So Zach Moss is the guy who I'm starting in this matchup. Devin Singletary, if you're desperate, right? If you got a PPR formats, obviously his ceiling is a bit higher because he is the pass-catching back. But I do like Zach Moss more here. You're starting Kyle Allen and you're starting Javon Diggs. Kyle Allen, Josh Allen, holy shit. You can tell how tired I am as I am recording this. So, you're starting Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. They're both up. John Brown, revenge game. John Brown used to play for the Cardinals. One of my favorite players back in that time for them. And we just know that this Bills offense moves a lot differently when John Brown is healthy and active. Absolutely have him in your lineup this week. Because here's something that I really want to consider, that I want you to consider. With Tre'Davious White and Patrick Peterson playing in this game, that means the following. 1, Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins are both going to get shadowed. The opposing wide receiver ones are going to be shadow coveraged in this game. And that means that Christian Kirk and John Brown are going to be smash plays this week. Just having all the defensive attention drawn to those two wide receivers opens up major holes for Kirk and Brown to have incredible games in this matchup. I'm excited starting both of them in my lineups this week. Kenyon Drake was back at practice with that ankle injury. He is going to be a game-time decision. If he is up and active, you play him. And I think you can also start Chase Edmonds as well. I need to stop streaming this shit at 9 o'clock at night. 9:30. Edmonds, you can play him as well. He's been fine. He's been a very solid PPR running back, as you know. And the Bills are very beatable in the ground. It's the one area where their defense is the weakest. It's been like that for about the past 2 years or so, where the Bills are susceptible to giving up points to the running back position. This is a game very similar to the Texans and Browns, where I'm saying start everybody, fire them all up for your lineup. We got a few more games here left to cover. Let's go to the Saints and the 49ers. What the fuck do we do with the 49ers running backs at this point? We've been Shanahan before multiple times this season. Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert are still out, which leaves JaMychal Hasty and Jerick McKinnon. We thought it would be Hasty last week. It was not. It was a Raheem Mostert week. I'm sorry, it was a Jerick McKinnon week, excuse me, after beat reporters told us, hey, expect a lot of JaMychal Hasty, and now this week they're saying expect a lot of Jerick McKinnon. I don't know what to do. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I lean McKinnon because with McKinnon, you know there's going to be pass catching work, and in a game like this where I expect the team to be trailing versus New Orleans, they're going to have to play from behind, and that means that McKinnon should be the running back that you want to start this week. Devos Samuel is a long shot to play this week after that hamstring injury, and so I don't expect him to be in your lineup. I think he's actually been listed as doubtful. I don't think he sees at the field, which means that Brandon Ayuk should be in your lineup because with Devos Samuel, excuse me, I really do apologize. With no Devos Samuel and no George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk is going to continue to prosper as a young wide receiver in this league. Just get more and more reps against a decent defense. They've turned it around recently over the course of the past few weeks than what they were to start the season, but they still are not great. So Brandon Ayuk definitely has the potential to have a pretty good game in this matchup. And then for the Saints, obviously Breeze, Kamara, Thomas, Cook are all up in your lineup. The only question that I have is Emmanuel Sanders, to be honest. Emmanuel Sanders might be dead. I really think that this is going to be the to-be-determined game for that. With Emmanuel Sanders, if you recall, I talked about this a few weeks ago. When Emmanuel Sanders caught that first touchdown pass versus Drew Brees came up to him and said that was the icebreaker. And we've seen Drew Brees support multiple wide receivers before, multiple wide receiver twos or ones before. So we know that that's definitely an option. But unfortunately, prior to last week versus Tampa Bay in a game that was an absolute rout, Emmanuel Sanders did not play due to COVID, and we don't know the long-term effects of how that is going to impact him. But in the 3 games before that, granted no Michael Thomas, so this is the big caveat. 5 targets, 9 targets, 14, 56 56 yards in the touchdown, 93 yards, and 122. Those 3 games, he scored double-digit fantasy points. Then had the bye week, caught COVID, and last week played 29% of snaps, got in the end zone, and had 38 yards as well. So Emmanuel Sanders really is the ultimate coin flip for me this week. If you need points, not if you need, that's the poor way to say it. I think if you need a swing for the fences play, Emmanuel Sanders has had upside just because you're going to keep chasing those points. That's now actually 4 straight games where he's had double-digit fantasy points in scoring. So I think Emmanuel Sanders is a really interesting option for that reason. But if I can avoid it for 1 more week just to see what I actually have when Michael Thomas is on the field, that's the route that I'm going to try and take with Emmanuel Sanders. I guess we can move on to our next game then. And this is actually a really, really fun one for me. The Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium, a battle of the NFC West. Can I get the drum roll, please? Drum roll, please. Where's my start? Everybody, please, just do it. Just do it. Need I say more? Need I say more? The Seattle Seahawks are on pace to have the worst pass defense in NFL history. They are on pace to give up over 5,000 passing yards. They are utterly abysmal. If my numbers were correct, I believe they are on pace to give up 1,600 yards more than the next worst defense all time. Like, fire up Jared Goff, fire up Cooper Kupp, fire up Robert Woods. Like, everyone should be in your lineup for the Rams. Darrell Henderson's up in your lineup, right? He's questionable for this game, but I think he's going to play. He was limited in practice on Thursday. Tyler Higbee, if you can't start him versus this week, when can you start him, right? So I'm excited for Higbee in this matchup. Gerald Everett, if you're really desperate and you want to try and get cute with it this week, I think that's a fun option. Josh Reynolds is in that same boat. And I'm going to go out on the limb here and say this. The Van Jefferson coming out party happens this week versus the Seattle Seahawks. Van Jefferson is a 2nd-round rookie draft pick out of Ole Miss, a guy who I absolutely adored coming out of college this past season. I had him ranked as my number 15th or 14th rookie overall. I had him 1 spot higher than CeeDee Lamb. So what we saw with Van Jefferson early on in this year was the snap counts were there for a rookie. He was getting anywhere between 30 and 45% snap counts. Limited targets, but was making great plays in that time. And then for whatever reason, he went from this to this and just dropped off the face of the earth. So if you've been holding him in Dynasty and you have a thinner Dynasty bench, like myself, I think we only have like a 15 bench on Dynasty or so, you know the struggle that it's been to try and hold Van Jefferson when you know that there might be better options on the waiver wire. But after the bye week, I think this is when they're really going to try and start to utilize him and get him more involved. One of the theories that I've heard from Los Angeles Rams beat reporter from The Athletic, Jordan Rodriguez, she said that one of the reasons that this was a hypothesis, that she thought that Josh Reynolds was getting more work than Van Jefferson is because Josh Reynolds is on an expiring contract, and so they wanted to showcase him for a potential trade. And with that, there were no takers. He was not moved at the deadline, but I think that was kind of the plan. I really do buy into that theory because it makes a lot of sense for me. And then just with Van, like he has that second round draft tag to him, and so like they're gonna have to start getting him more and more involved because if you spend a second round pick on a guy, right? Like what a second round pick does you no good if you're not gonna play him, right? And yes, they don't necessarily need him right now, but I do think that this could be the week where he starts to get involved from now to the rest of the season. So just a name to keep an eye on, especially in deeper leagues. Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson are both out for this week. So with that being said, DJ Dallas has played fine enough. Has played fine enough for the Seahawks, mainly having fantasy relevance. Because he's gotten into the end zone 3 times already, which makes me really happy as a DJ Dallas truther. And then also Travis Homer has been a guy who's been seeing some receiving work as well as some first and second down work as well. They're going to rotate those guys interchangeably. We know what Pete Carroll kind of does when he doesn't have Chris Carson. Even when he does have Chris Carson, there have been games where Carson's been seeing like 50% of snaps essentially. So it's been a revolving door of running backs over in Seattle, despite the fact that Chris Carson has been incredible this season. And without Carson and Hyde, that means that Dallas and Homer are both guys who you can play. Obviously, you're starting Russ. Obviously, you're starting Lockett and Metcalf. And this game is probably my game I'm most excited about for this week, Week 10. C-Kill, what's up? Hello. Happy Saturday. Let me know if you are projected to win or lose your matchup. If you have any start-sit questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. But I am thankful for you stopping by on this lovely Saturday night. We got 3 more games to get to. Let's chug some water first. All right, let's get cracking. We have the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joe Mixon is out for this game with that ankle injury. He didn't practice all week coming off of the bye, and we really did think that, all right, we'll have this bye week of Joe Mixon, and then we're going to get him back and ready to go for the fantasy playoffs. Obviously, that's still a few weeks away, but I would like to see Joe Mixon healthy sooner rather than later. If you watched my How I Trade video, I actually talked about how I traded Joe Mixon this week. It was a trade that hurt my soul, but it was a trade that I felt was the right thing to make. And then the Steelers, Big Ben is back off that COVID list, had that week off. He said that his body really needed it, so I'm excited for Big Ben in this matchup. And I actually think this is potentially a start to everybody game. And what I mean by that is, first off, you know what I mean. If you just listen to my Rams and Seahawks preview, fire up everybody in your lineup. But with that Steelers defense, right, it's scary, it's daunting, it's taunting. I totally get it, right? But if we expect the Steelers to dominate the Bengals early on, especially from an offense and defensive perspective, the Steelers offense is going to absolutely trounce the Bengals defense with Big Ben, Deontay, Juju, Claypool, James Conner, Eric Ebron. There's going to be fantasy points here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're starting all of them if you're able to. You are absolutely trying to start all of them in this matchup. That means the Bengals are playing from behind. And yes, the Bengals offensive line is not great, but I'm going to trust Joe Burrow here. Burrow probably gets in the end zone once or twice. So there's points there. Obviously, playing from behind allows for the potential for more. Tyler Boyd's been incredible, AJ Green has had a bit of a resurgence. T. Higgins, breakout rookie sensation, and Gio Bernard getting the full workload out of the backfield and passing down work, right? Like, there's opportunity here, and I feel pretty comfortable saying start everybody. That Steelers defense is daunting. I totally get it, and it's not a fun thing to say, oh, I'm comfortable starting my guys versus the Steelers. But I think you can do a lot worse. Like, this just makes a whole lot of sense to me, to where this game is Steelers early and often, but then that second half, late third quarter, all of fourth, like, that could be the time where the Cincinnati Bengals really do shine once the game is well out of reach. All right, Gamer NXC says, PPR, do you deal Terry and JT for D-Hop? My lineup for the playoffs would be Burrow, Ridley, D-Hop. Holy fuck. I'm 9-0, so no worry for wins. 14-team league. First off, Gamer, I would love to be in that league. If that is your team in a 14-teamer, I have so many questions. Do you trade? You have to, right? I'm interested. The only reason why I wouldn't is I'm very curious to know who your third running back is at that point. After Henry and after Nick Chubb, who is your third running back? Because looking at that now, like, I feel like you would have to. Because Jonathan Taylor has done absolutely nothing, and McLaurin's been great, but he ain't DeAndre Hopkins. So in a roundabout way, you're kind of trading just Terry McLaurin for D-Hop, and like that makes, I mean, who wouldn't do that, right? So my gut reaction says yes. I don't know who your third running back is. If you've followed me and if you're subscribed, you know that my philosophy is running backs win you championships. So, and the reason why I'm looking this way again is because I have the chat pulled up here. But my philosophy is running backs win new championships. So I'm very curious to know who your third running back is on the off chance that Henry or Chubb go down with an injury or things like that. We got two more games here to cover. We got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the New England Patriots. Mark Ingram did not practice Thursday. I do not have a Friday update, though I do not believe he practiced today either. So he's likely going to miss this game with that ankle injury. I don't love Gus Edwards or J.K. Dobbins, but they've both been some level of productive without Ingram. And with that, there is a way for you to definitely... Oh, hang on. I want timeout. 30 seconds. He has James White, P. Ryan, Wilkins. Oh, yeah. Yep, you do it. No RB3. Yeah, no. I know you don't have... I know that most leagues aren't three running backs, but the reason why I say third running back is because... my philosophy is with the way that running backs get hurt, or just things like hurt, bye weeks, suspension. Obviously, we're kind of past bye weeks at this point, but mainly just injuries, right? If you don't have a way to supplement your running backs, you're screwed, right? It's the reason why I value running backs so much in fantasy. I can just give you an example of that right now for my own team. In one league that I have right now, my running backs are Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift, Ronald Jones, Todd Gurley, and Antonio Gibson. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 running backs in a roster size of 16. I value the position that much, and I try and have as many good running backs as I can. But seeing that you have Michael P. Ryan, who is expected to get more, who is expected to become the featured back in New York after the bye week, Wilkins, who's been better than Jonathan Taylor, I would absolutely make that deal. Not a doubt in my mind. All right, let's keep going here. Back to the Ravens and Patriots. I'm fine starting Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. It's not a matchup that I particularly love, but I think you can do a lot worse, so I'm fine putting them in my lineup. You got to keep playing Lamar and Mark Andrews. It's been tough sledding, but hopefully things turn around here real soon. And on the other side of that, there's no need to keep playing Hollywood Brown. I'm off the bandwagon. It sucks. It's not fun to be off the bandwagon, right? Because I do really like the talent that is Hollywood, but he's just not getting it done. And as I've said over and over throughout the past 2 weeks or so, We need wins, and we can't make plays that put those wins in jeopardy. And when you willingly start Marquise Hollywood Brown at this point, that is exactly what you are doing. You cannot start him now or for the foreseeable future until things drastically change for him. I'm not interested in starting any Patriot. The only Patriot who I'm comfortable starting is Cam Newton, just because the rushing upside has been there all season long, and rushing quarterbacks are cheat codes. But I'm not starting Rex Burkhead. I'm not starting James White. I'm not starting Damian Harris. I'm not starting Sony Michel. I'm not starting Edelman, who's out on IR. Ignore that. Jacoby Myers, no. Yes, the targets have been there and things like that, but I'm not playing against this Baltimore defense. Not a chance in hell. N'Keal Harry, if he's active, no. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? In the words of the great Bomani Jones, for who? For what? What is the rhyme or reason to do such a thing? Again, we need wins. We can't take dart throw chances like this in Week 10. Let's see. Matt, hello. Welcome to the stream. We're just about to wrap up here. Jared Cook or Robert Tonyan, and Fournette or McKissick in full point PPR. Jared Cook. I lead Tonyan over Jared Cook. Just knowing the matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think the Packers are going to get up early and score a whole ton of points. And I like Tonyan being a major part in that. So give me Tonyan over Jared Cook. And then Fournette or J.D. McKissick. Oh my goodness. Give me 30 seconds and I'm going to get you your answer for you in just a moment. There's really just one thing that I need to look at. Let's see. All right, you're playing Fournette. You're playing Fournette over McKissick. They both have great matchups, but as I've been saying all season long, you start your running backs against the Carolina Panthers. So that was the one reason why I was leaning Fournette to begin with. But then even just taking that a step further, looking at the production, not through the air of both running backs. Fournette has the opportunity to get 10 carries as well. So if they're both getting 6 targets, but Fournette is getting 10 carries against a worse run defense, yeah, you're starting Fournette in that matchup for me. Let's get to our final game here, and that is going to be the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears. On Monday Night Football, the Bears' defense has been spectacular. We all knew this, but I can't believe I can't believe how great that defense still is, in all honesty. We know that defenses kind of have this 2-year window, and it feels like the Bears are now expanding into year 4 where their defense is just incredible. So kudos to them for keeping it up and keeping their team afloat because of it, right? I'm kind of holding my breath about Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson in this game as well. We saw A.J. Brown get into the end zone last week versus Chicago, so that was nice to see. So we do know that it's possible for somebody here to get into the end zone. But when you trust Kirk Cousins against a defense like this in a primetime Monday night game, can you rely on Thielen or Jefferson? I lean no, right? But these are two guys who have proved it pretty much all season long. I know Jefferson's been a bit up and down, all things considered, but this is a game where if they do focus on Thielen, Jefferson can easily sneak off for a touchdown in this game. And Dalvin Cook is never leaving your lineup. Doesn't matter of the matchup, right? Dalvin Cook has been fucking incredible for the past 3 weeks. So with that, let me just kind of rehash that because I don't like the way that I worded that. I'm fine playing Thielen and Jefferson, but you have to lower your expectations if you were to do so. I think trying to expect a boom game for them is the wrong way to go about it, but instead you have to look at the floor. Justin Jefferson's floor is probably 60 receiving yards. Justin Jefferson's floor is probably 3 receptions for 60 receiving yards, and then Adam Thielen is likely 8 receptions, and even that seems kind of high. Well, let's go 6 for 100 essentially for Thielen. That seems kind of ballpark for me. And if that's the case versus a defense like this, you're actually kind of happy with that. So definitely just temper your expectations for those wide receivers for the Vikings. David Montgomery has been out with a concussion. So you're looking at guys like Ryan Nile. I said Daniel. Whoops. And Lamar Miller. So let's chat about this, shall we? Where's my trending at? So no, I'm not starting a Bears running back. Why? Again, for who? For what? We need security in week 10. There's no reason for us to try and roll the dice on a Chicago Bears running back. No. Don't do it to yourself. This offense already struggles as is. Why are you trying to take the third or fourth string running back and plug them into your lineup? It is not worth it. Do not do it. Yes, this matchup against the Vikings is great, but it is not one that I'm actively going to roll the dice on. Allen Robinson is questionable with a knee injury. He was a limited participant in practice all week. I expect him to play in this matchup, but if you do have Allen Robinson, be sure to have a contingency option for you. My favorite contingency option for Allen Robinson is Darnell Mooney, rookie wide receiver. He's been getting targeted like crazy, got into the end zone last week, and is developing a nice connection with Nick Foles. So he's the guy who I would replace Allen Robinson for if Allen Robinson is a no-go. But other than that, I'm not really playing any other person on the wide receiver core for the Bears outside of A-Rob, Mooney if you're in a deep league or in a dynasty league, and then Jimmy Graham has a great matchup here as well. Just talking about how bad that Vikings defense is, and this is certainly an opportunity where if the Bears get into the goal line, they can post up Jimmy Graham into the end zone, and he can have a nice little 2-yard touchdown, and that's going to give you a nice week for fantasy for Week 10. Let's go one more look at the chat. Again, if you have any other questions, follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. I answer all of your questions over there as well. My DMs are always open, so let's chat and let's have some discussion, shall we? Let's see. Gamer chimes back and says he has, yeah, you got Damian Harris in that deal? Oh my god, what a steal. What a fucking steal, Gamer. Congratulations on winning that trade. D-Hop and Damian Harris for Terry McLaurin and Jonathan Taylor. Bravo. Bravo. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. And I think that's where we're going to wrap up this video at, this live stream. So if you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like down below. Also subscribe so you never miss a live stream or video from me. A lot of different content in the works, and I'm already starting to plan off the I'm trying to already plan the off-season content as well. We just covered what, 14 games in an hour and 10 minutes? Hell yeah, that's the efficiency that I like to see. And with that, I guess I'll get up out of here. So have a great Saturday night. Best of luck tomorrow. Remember, if you have any tilt questions tomorrow, just social media. It's right there. Please follow. It's that easy. All you have to do is follow along. All right, I'm out. Later. Bye.